Donald Trump is shockingly continuing his trend of promoting the coronavirus vaccine. This time he had his comments aired on OAN, also a right-wing media organization. But while his promotion of the COVID vaccine and the boosters might be an interesting story by itself, let's also consider the fact that what's getting more attention is that he's making some shots, throwing some shots at people. Someone specific, if you ask me. But why don't we watch and then I'll decode that for you.
Do you reconsider your push for it, or what's your view now on the vaccine in general?
Well, I've taken it. I've had the booster. Many politicians, I watched a couple of politicians be interviewed, and one of the questions was, did you get the booster? Because they had the vaccine. And they're answering it like, in other words, the answer is yes, but they don't want to say it. Because they're gutless, you gotta say it. Whether you had it or not, say it. Right. But the fact is that I think the vaccine has saved tens of millions of people throughout the world. I have had absolutely no side effects. I've had it like other people have had it, nothing special.
So he has been boosted, that's good news. He continues promoting the vaccine, that's also good news. I took the booster. I love how breathy his voice is. Like he's so breathy. But
from Pfizer.
I didn't have any side effects. Like, why does he talk like that? But anyway, he took some shots at Republicans. He didn't name any names, but he used the word gutless. And there's a lot of speculation in regard to who he's talking about, and I think that speculation is accurate because there was a moment on Maria Bartiromo's Fox Business show that featured a GOP lawmaker or governor who didn't really want to answer the question about whether or not he had gotten the booster. Let's refresh our memories.
Have you gotten the booster?
So I've done whatever I did, the normal shot, and that at the end of the day is people's individual decisions about what they want to do.
Let them fight. Let them fight.
Tear each other to pieces.
I love this. Go ahead.
Yeah, I do, and then there's several things I want to make sure that we touch on. So one is, so this is something that I talked about this morning, but I want your take on it. What do you think about pointing out that someone is gutless, which I think we probably agree it is pretty gutless to not just admit that you took medicine, you baby, but to refuse to actually say the name of the person you're calling gutless. They won't say if they took a vaccine, you won't say who you're talking about. Isn't that just as cowardly?
No, I think eventually, look, I don't think for a second that Trump is gonna hold back. Like we've seen how he treats people, even in his own party, who he happens to disagree with. So maybe he's testing the waters for now, who knows? But there's no question that Trump sees DeSantis as his main competition for the 2024 Republican nomination. And he has good reason to be concerned about that because turns out that there's a lot of crossover between Ron DeSantis' supporters and Trump supporters. In fact, there was a recent article written in The Insider by Kimberly Leonard. She actually went to a pro-Trump rally in Florida near Mar-a-Lago. This was on January 6th, the 1-year anniversary of the Capitol riots. And she noticed a trend among the rally goers. And I want to share some of those details with you. She says, first she interviewed Ron DeSantis and his reaction to this question is fascinating. I had asked DeSantis whether he planned to talk to Trump, but he didn't answer that part of the question. But why? I mean, they were buddy-buddy, they were big allies. In fact, Ron DeSantis would visit the White House quite often during the Trump administration, but it gets better. She also talked to the rally goers and here's what she noticed. The people were unwavering in their support for Trump and want him to run again in 2024. And if he doesn't, who would you hope would be the Republican nominee, I asked. Everyone I asked had the same answer, DeSantis. And look, guys, you think Trump's not paying close attention to this? You think he doesn't fume at all the love that DeSantis gets from the Republican electorate. Eric Monarch, who would like to see DeSantis become president someday, saying the two had the same energy, but he also said that Trump could be down and dirty in his interactions, while DeSantis is a little cooler.
Yeah, he's
so cool.
They're the best. Yeah, it's interesting that they've. I mean, I try to figure out what it is that has caused so many in the Republican base to like DeSantis as. I mean, look, he's high profile because he's the governor of Florida. That's going to be a big thing. And like he seems to fight, like he's willing to like say critical race theory over and over and over again. That's what stands in for fighting or being smart or whatever on their side. But when you see the direct comparison, like Trump attacking him right now, do you think that DeSantis is going to respond to it? I mean, more is going to come. This is hardly the first time that Trump has implied some sort of criticism for DeSantis, and we know previously, like last year. A bunch of the like Wall Street GOP backers were like apparently meeting with DeSantis. They like him as a more stable person who will literally just do whatever they say. So in theory, a clash could be there. But despite the fact that Trump fans like both, how do you think that DeSantis would stand up to these ridiculous attacks from Trump that we saw? You go in 2016, like he took out Chris Christie and Rand Paul and Ted Cruz and all that. Is there anybody that can stand up against that? And if anybody, is DeSantis the person to do it? I've never, like they may think that he's tough because like he criticizes liberals or something, but to be tough against someone who's attacking you and competing for the same voters, I don't think that he has it at all.
Look, I would like to queue up the DeSantis video that we just watched because I think that's a good piece of evidence for the argument that I'm gonna make. Donald Trump is pretty ruthless, and he did a great job in unmanning all sorts of Republican politicians who had for years presented themselves as these tough guys. And it was honestly shocking as it was happening in real time. And so I don't think that Ron DeSantis has the same ruthlessness, and more importantly, I don't think he has the same, I don't know if charisma is the right word. And I know, look, we don't like Trump, we don't agree with him, we don't want him reelected. However, I think it would be wrong to deny the fact that he's funny and he's entertaining. And I think that played a huge role in growing his base, in creating this cult of personality. I don't see any of that with Ron DeSantis. Maybe policy-wise, they're very similar, but in terms of personality, in terms of the way they carry themselves, their ability to really, draw people based on a cult of personality, I really think it's night and day. And also, Trump seems to do okay in pushing back whenever he's asked a question he doesn't like, whereas DeSantis looked like a deer in the headlights when Maria Bartiromo asked him an obvious and easy question about boosters. So let's just watch that video one more time.
Have you gotten the booster?
So I've done whatever I did, the normal shot, and that at the end of the day is people's individual decisions about what they want to do.
Like he's fumbling and bumbling. He's kind of struggling to answer that question. He wasn't really prepared, although he should have expected that question. I don't know. Maybe I'm making too much out of it.
Maybe honestly, it reminds me a little bit of like Ted Cruz had the same sort of test. Like you don't have to go up directly against Trump yet, but you can't even stand up to Tucker Carlson. Like, and the thing that Trump has that they don't is that he will just say what his stupid, dumb position that he just thought of and hasn't considered at all is. And sure, he might change it later, but he will strongly have whatever position it is that he has that second. Whereas they're like, oh God, I gotta thread the needle of what is the base gonna think? And like Trump is actually disagreeing with his base in some ways on vaccination. He then turns it into this whole civil liberties thing, which it isn't at all. But he's willing to do that. Ted Cruz isn't willing to do that. Ron DeSantis isn't willing to do that. They're all so desperate and try hard in a way that like I've never really agreed with most people's position that Trump is like charismatic or whatever. But he at least has that. He doesn't seem, he's desperate in some ways psychologically, but he doesn't seem desperate in that focus group sort of way. But really fast, I do want to make sure that we mention one thing in that I think his objective and the outcome of what Trump said was to criticize DeSantis.
Yes.
And perhaps because he wasn't willing to actually say it, it's almost more a direct message to DeSantis than a criticism of DeSantis for a third party to witness. Because some in the base might know what he's talking about there, but for a lot of them, it'll probably go over their heads, but it will not go over DeSantis' head. But he is not the only person that description applies to. People who won't say if they took it or not. Like at one point, Marjorie Greene wouldn't. I think since then she has. Tucker Carlson literally won't respond. He's just flailing and trying to come up with some sort of evasion about I don't have to tell you and why are you asking me about my sex life and all that stuff. It's gutless. It is refusing to be clear. It is trying to thread the grifty needle. And I don't think he's intending to criticize Tucker Carlson there, but he very much is.
I think that's such a great point. And I love that you brought up Marjorie Taylor Greene because I thought about her as well as he was making the gutless comment. And I want to really emphasize the point you made about what's motivating his promotion of the vaccine. Listen, I'll take it. It's effectively overall a good thing that Trump is encouraging people to get vaccinated and boosted. But what's motivating him clearly is a political strategy here. And it wasn't really clear to me until he did this interview on OAN. And in a later interview on NPR, he said while he promotes getting vaccinated and boosted, he is completely against vaccine mandates. So he will change his messaging depending on what is most beneficial for his own political strategy. And so this isn't really about informing people or urging people to do the right thing to keep themselves and their community safe. It's really about what works for Trump on any given day.
Yeah. Can I make one super final last point about that?
Sure.
And this ties into one of, again, the gutless weaknesses of Trump in this case, is that he's willing to say it's good, it saved lives, and that actually differentiates himself from like 95% of the right, who is not willing to say that because they're terrified that they will lose their base, their audience, whatever. Trump isn't worried about that. The rest of them are terrified of being outed as a rhino because you took medicine or whatever. But if Trump actually cared about encouraging these people to get vaccinated, one very powerful tool he could deploy is to talk about his experience of having COVID and how it literally sent him to Walter Reed, and he was breathing through like it sounded like cheese whiz or something. Like he sounded so terrible. It was a horrible experience. But he is terrified of expressing weakness and revealing his weakness, being vulnerable in that way. So he talks about how his experience was nothing special there. It wasn't. You went to Walter Reed. You could have died. That would be persuasive potentially, but he can't say it because he's too weak.
Yep, that's a great point. Cowardly behavior all around. There's no question about that.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.